Hello, Rowena, and welcome. It's nice to finally meet you after we had a few email exchanges around receiving a report and setting up this meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. So, Rowena, we're basically talking about your multi-source feedback report. It's pretty much two aspects to it. One around patient feedback, which looks at your interpersonal competencies as perceived by patients, and one around the colleague feedback as perceived by colleagues. And it's an opportunity really for us just to have a chat about it, see what your thoughts are around it, and also, are there some learning potentials within the report? So, but before we do that, I'd love to hear a little bit about where you practice now.
So I have a practice in Maleny, one of about 6 doctors. We're busy, popular practice in town.
Yeah, and you're the only female doctor there, are you?
I am, yeah.
Right. And did you enjoy your practice there?
It's I'm good at what I do. It's I seem to have plenty of patience. Excuse me.
Okay, excellent. Well, you would have received your report via email. What were your first reactions when you received your report and opened it up and started looking through the results?
I have to be honest with you, I haven't really had a lot of time because the practice is so busy.
Right.
And I spend a lot of time reading up. I really haven't. I've skimmed through this, but I really haven't had time to investigate it.
Right.
Very
So
closely.
is now a good time to go through, or should we delay the conversation around the report?
No, now's fine.
You're happy to proceed and
Yep,
we'll look at it?
Set aside the hour.
Oh, excellent. No, that's great. All right. Well, given that you just had a skim, it might be helpful if we dig a bit deeper and see what the report is saying.
Sure.
When you did have a look and you skimmed it, what were your initial reactions then?
Look, I didn't see much that was positive in the report. From what I could see, it was pretty much, it was pretty much all negative. So, I guess my feeling about that is that I'd be really interested to know what patients were surveyed, because we all have our problem patients, and are those the patients who are feeding back on me as a doctor, or so I'd be interested to know. I'd be interested to know who they got to fill this stuff out. Quite frankly.
So you're not quite sure what type of patients completed the forms, and that's one part of the report, the patients, and there's also the colleagues completing the report as well.
Yep.
Yeah, so sort of a bit of a questions around who. I mean, just on that, generally what would usually happen is that the patients would be handed a form after they've seen you, normally consecutive patients. So to be, I'm presuming they're not hand-picked, they're actually done consecutively during a morning or during an afternoon. So it sounds like you're sort of questioning the types of patients that filled it in. Was there anything else that sort of your thoughts about the report?
I find it really hard to understand why I've got this feedback. I am a dedicated, hardworking doctor. My clinical knowledge is exceptional. I work really hard to do the right thing by my patients. I'm reliable. I don't know why. I don't see it. I don't see why I'm getting this feedback, and I just find it all really disappointing.
Yeah. So this was not what you expected.
No.
And in fact, it's quite disappointing for you to see these results. I found some positives in there, and I'm happy to go through those. That sounds a bit surprising.
Yep.
I guess when you see it initially, I can see how you might think, well, it sounds like you're thinking this isn't done justice to you as who you are as a doctor. Would that be right?
Yeah, that'd be right.
Okay. Well, it would be okay if we went through the report and just had a look at a few things. I've had a good look at the report. I know you said you skimmed over it, but then I think we can have some time to go through, and you said you've got some time, so that's how you put some time aside. Okay. So if we move to that table 1.1 where the patient feedback is around the actual frequencies of ratings, you had 2 ratings of poor, 1 in each of 2 of the questions out of 40 patients. So no one's really, the majority have not rated you poor. There's a couple of rated you fair and quite a few excellents. And I think your lowest excellent there was to do with reassurance. Does that surprise you?
The thing is that if that is about telling patients what they want to hear, if that is about telling a patient that everything's going to be okay and you're going to get better, and they're not, then that's a lie. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to con my patients into thinking they're going to be okay when they're not. We have to be able to have those confronting conversations.
Absolutely. No, I'm fully in a concordance with that. I think this concept of reassurance from a patient's perspective is a little different from how doctors perceive reassurance, like you've just described. So patients, when we've done some research, patients tend to think of reassurance as not that everything's going to be all right, but what they think of it as is that the doctor is on my side and has my best interest at heart. So for them, reassurance is somewhat different than how we perceive it. So if you look at it in that light, that the doctor is on my side and has my best interest at heart, that just puts a different angle on the question. So, and we'll come to some of that because there were some patient comments around that, and if that's all right, we'll come back to that.
Sure.
But generally, a lot of very goods and a lot of excellence as well. So that's quite positive. Over the page, you'll see the benchmark scores. And look, I'm going to pick up on a positive here that stood out. You'll see there's one particular area that you were in the highest, above the highest 75% of all benchmark scores. And that was time for the visit. So patients rated you very highly in terms of the perception of the time you gave them during their consultation. What do you make of that?
Yeah, that's interesting because I don't, we see patients for a particular amount of time and I don't go over that. So I guess what I do is I always ask that open-ended question to start the consultation. Tell me about why you're here. What do you want to get out of this?
Right.
So I guess that potentially, and I also always ask if there's anything else
Right.
that they would like to talk about.
So you don't just stay with the first presenting problem?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, so I wonder if that sort of gives an impression of time spent.
I think it does. The evidence would suggest so,
Right.
that patients feel like they do have the time rather than being sort of cut off or asked questions on that first presenting problem. So that's working for you. So that's a positive. And the patients have rated you quite highly on that, and you're well above the benchmark as well. So.
Yeah. So all these scores are 70 to 80%. So I don't understand. This is something I really don't get. Why is this, a bad score in terms of the percentiles and
Yes.
it's 70 to 80%. Like is that not?
That's a good question, and I'll try and answer as best I can. But generally, with patient ratings, a sort of benchmark score, you'll see the benchmark, the medians there in the benchmark data. They're sitting really around the low 90s, high 80s, and low 90%. And that's what patients tend to do when they rate you. There's a brilliant piece of research done recently where they interviewed people who had rated their doctors very good on the form and excellent, and they found that those that were rated excellent, pretty much the patients didn't have any more to say, but those that were rated very good, and you think that'd be enough, actually they had some issues with the doctor. So it's almost like there's patients that really need to rate you excellent to be totally satisfied. So it's not what you expect, because if this was your exam score in medical school, you'd be quite happy with that. But with patients, it's a little bit different. And I think the patient comments will highlight some of the issues, so we'll get to those in a minute. But look, what you talked about there in terms of time for visit, I'd keep doing that. That's a real positive that you've talked about. So that's excellent. If we look at the breakdown of patients in terms of their age and gender and whether they've seen you before, you'll see that I just noticed that the under 25 scored a lot less, and you're nodding. So what do you make of that? That the under 25s rated you lower than those who are over 25? I mean, the over 60s seem to like you quite a bit.
Yeah.
But what is it with the under 20? What did you make of that?
I just feel more comfortable with my older patients. I feel like we have a better relationship. I feel that I don't know. There's something about the dynamic there that it's just easier. I feel, I don't know. I feel kind of a bit out of touch, I think, with younger people. And there's something about, I don't know, maybe it's something about their expectations of what a doctor is or something. I'm not sure. But
Okay.
I'm more comfortable with my older patients.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's good to acknowledge that and understand that, and maybe look at perhaps going forward what it is, how you might work better with younger patients. I imagine Malene has a fairly high young population. I'm not sure.
It tends towards middle age and older. Yeah.
Okay. I did notice that you, not that it's a big difference, but you perform better with male patients and female patients. Just a slightly better, but I wouldn't make too much of those that 2% difference. But it was interesting.
It's quite close.
Yeah, it is quite close. Sometimes I see a bit of a disparity between those two, and I often ask doctors why. And similar to your younger people, they might say, I try and do these differently with one of the particular genders for whatever reason, but yours are pretty close.
Yeah.
And look, interestingly, that visit with the usual doctor in terms of have they seen you before, you perform sort of higher than expected in terms of people that have seen you for the first time, because that normally scores quite lower than people you've seen before because of that loyalty factor. So the interpersonal skills one needs for first visit patients that have seen you for the first time are much more needed. So is there anything that you are conscious of doing when you see a patient for the first time?
They will tend to be, so first time patients I will take just a little bit more time with them, just as an opportunity to get a bit more of a picture of their life and get to know them a bit better.
Yeah.
I just find that that's really helpful. If when that person does come back, having had that is really helpful.
Okay.
That picture of what their life is like and how they experience their condition. And
so you're quite conscious when they see you for the first time that you're going to do something a little bit different than you do with a patient that's seen you for the second or third or fourth time.
Yeah.
Okay, Rowena, no, that's great. So you can see what we're doing is we're just sort of fleshing out what looks like a very negative report that you'd said. There's some shining lights here that are working for you, and I appreciate you describing some of those behaviours that you do in different situations. That's excellent. That's what this is all about, this debrief. It's just to explore that a bit further. We come to the comments. Lots of comments there. You had 40 patients, and I think there were around 15 to 20 comments, so that's great. Did you get a chance to look through these comments? Did anything particularly strike you?
Yeah, I managed to have a bit of a look.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's it seems to be the way I speak. It seems to be that it's too fast, or there's too many medical terms, or that seems to be it. Seems to all be around communication. Is what they're all saying. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's come to that in a second. Did you see any positives in there? I saw quite a few positives.
Oh, did you?
I
Please
did.
point them out.
Okay.
I
Rowena, look, I saw words like pleasant, listens attentively, puts people at ease. Do these resonate with you?
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see it's quite this is quite an emotive report,
Yeah,
isn't
I'm
it?
really sorry. I'm so sorry. It was just really difficult to read some of this stuff, and for you to actually point out some stuff that I didn't see is really helpful. Sorry.
No, that's okay. No, this sort of feedback is something that generally doctors aren't quite familiar with, to have feedback on their interpersonal skills and their professionalism, those rated by colleagues. I was looking for some tissues, sorry.
It's okay, I'm fine.
You're good? So it's okay to feel emotive about this feedback. It's because it is sort of getting at the heart of what we do in terms of the way we come across. I can see it's quite, not as in it upsetting, but quite surprising for you. Can you just tell me a little bit about that? Why is it surprising in your context?
I think because my understanding of my relationship with my patients is that it's positive and good, and that I really try so hard to help them and to stay up to date with clinical research and new findings, and I really work hard at that, and I want them to be well, and I want to be a part of the journey to get them there. I think to be reading some of this stuff about the way I communicate and potential failures in that aspect was surprising, difficult.
Yeah. You're obviously very determined doctor, and that wants to make sure to get it right. And look, there is a lot of positives. If we look at those comments in detail, you'll see that listen to me, explain my issue, explain the medication well, nice, pleasant person. There were some issues mainly around communication. So, and you did highlight that then as well, about just slowing your speech, not using medical terms, and just better explanations. There's one there about just to have better explanations. Do you? How do you provide information to patients? Do you sketch diagrams occasionally, or give them information at all?
No.
By pamphlets?
No, I don't. I usually just try and verbally tell them what they need to know.
Yeah, patients are can be quite different in the way they receive that information, but generally diagrams tend to help, and some of the patient literature. So that might be something we might think about later when we think about going forward, what we might do differently.
Yeah. Okay.
So lots of patient comments there, lots of Lots of good patient comments. I encourage you to highlight them.
Okay.
That one that stuck out for me was just slow down their speech a bit and explain things better.
Okay.
That's probably part of trying to get through a consultation as well.
Yeah.
You know.
And trying to give them as much information as I think they need.
Yes.
Too.
Yes.
That's interesting about pamphlets and
Diagrams.
diagrams.
Yeah,
and,
sketching. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Okay. Okay, so that's the was there anything else you wanted to talk about in terms of the patient feedback? It's not as negative as you thought it was. I think there are some positive things there, but there's also some stuff to work on, and I think you've identified things that you will feel comfortable with going forward. We'll come to that towards the end of the debrief. Okay. The colleague feedback, again, if you look at the ratings there, no one rated you poor. You had 1 or 2 ratings around fair, and you had 12 colleagues rate. What type of colleagues did you choose to provide feedback to you? Doctors, obviously.
Yeah, doctors, some other clinicians, so a pharmacist, physio, nurses.
Right.
And then
Some managerial staff
managerial,
or
yes.
administrative?
So the receptionist,
Right.
one of the receptionists at the practice, and then the practice manager
Okay.
and PHN.
Right. Okay. So the primary health network as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. So if we look at the benchmark report, table 2.2, you'll notice there that you scored highly, and it was your highest relative to the benchmarks on ability to say no. Now, that is a little bit unusual, I must say, in all my debriefs. Usually the ability to say no scores lower. You've scored high. So tell me about that. Why have you scored high? Why have your colleagues rated you high on your ability to say no? Probably part of your determinism.
Yeah, potentially. I think I just... I think I just say what needs to be said. I think if something needs to be said, I will say it. So if someone's making demands on my time that I think are going to impact my ability to do my job, then I'm going to say no to that.
So you're quite aware of your boundaries, or where the boundaries lie,
Yeah.
in terms of what you need to do or when you could do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's a
I think
strength.
so.
Some people find that quite difficult to do.
Okay.
I've had a recent session with another doctor that was struggling to say no to things, and therefore had issues with balance in their lives. Getting a balance because of not saying no to things,
Yeah.
and that can often lead to stress and burnout. But your
Right,
score,
yes.
your score was quite high there, so that's a positive.
Yes. Yeah. I don't want to be one of those doctors who does burn out and then has to, can't deliver for their patients. I want to be able. I want to make sure that I can keep doing what I'm doing for them. Yeah.
Excellent. Keep doing that. The comments by the colleagues, again, I'd encourage you to have a really good look at these. Lots of positives. Strong work ethic, that's coming through. I can hear that. Professional, knowledgeable. I think you said that's something that you pride yourself on,
Yeah.
is knowing your stuff.
Yeah.
So that's coming through some of the comments now from colleagues. Good relationship with patients, well organised. So what do you make of those comments? The positive ones.
Yeah. It's nice to hear things like dedicated and hardworking and knowledgeable. That means a lot to me.
That's how you identify as a doctor.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the way that's the best thing I can do for my patients, is to be those things, is to be dedicated and knowledgeable and hardworking. So to hear that coming back from colleagues that I really, peers and colleagues that I respect, that means a lot.
Yeah, excellent. And there were a couple of comments around how you could become more effective.
Yeah.
And largely around those improved communication skills, which is a theme that's coming through really, isn't it? So in terms of the report, there are some positives around your knowledge, those sorts of skills. So if I said to you, those communication skills, does that make sense to you?
Yeah,
It does?
I'm getting clearer about what that means. Yep.
Right. So the question now is, how do we go forward on, communication skills? What does that mean in the context of you practicing? But before we do that, I was just intrigued by your self-ratings. If I may, you've got quite a lot of the questions rated excellent, but as you can see from your scores, they're not excellent. I'm interested to know why you rated yourself excellent on quite a few of those items, because that would have been quite disappointing for you to see that you weren't excellent being rated. So could you share that with me, Marina? Where was that coming from in these self-ratings?
So I, a lot of my training, the message that I got through a lot of it, and my idea of what it is to be a medical professional is that you have to be at the top of your game. You have to be hitting those benchmarks. You have to be doing the best.
Yes.
And if you're not, then go do something else. It's so there was that.
So you would have seen not putting excellent as a bit of a failure.
Totally. And more than a failure, like an admission of weakness.
Right. Yeah. And yet this feedback is really not a pass-fail. It's really about you having an opportunity to learn about how you can better yourself as a professional. Because we're on that journey, as you know, of lifelong learning. And so I can see how this report would have been quite confronting for you, having seen that and with your self-ratings in that excellent range but not getting that. So what else in terms of, wanting to be the best, or you should be the best, the top of your game, you said, and any admission of less than that is an admission of weakness?
Yeah.
It would be okay if I challenge you on that belief?
Go on then.
Well, where do you see the opportunity to learn more? I mean, I know you mentioned about clinical skills and that being at the top of your game, keep learning about the latest clinical aspects. In terms of the way we relate to patients and our teamwork, the way we teach others, all those other aspects of medicine that that you're very much aware of. Do you see that there's opportunity to improve in that, just generally? Because we're not all at the top of our game in those things. I've never had a report where it was 100% on every item across all the doctors that I've worked with in terms of debriefing. So there is room for improvement. So my challenge is, we try for the top of our game, but there's opportunity to learning. And that's what these reports are about, really, is to give you some insights to where you might want to keep doing what you're doing well. And we talked about that, ability to say no. I don't think you need any improvement in that. Well, maybe you do a little bit, but we can all do well. But in terms of your communication skills with patients and possibly with some colleagues as well, then my challenge is there room to work on in that space?
Yeah, look, I think I think what I'm seeing is that my idea of what a good doctor is only part of the picture, actually, and that I might have ignored, or I might have a blind spot around some of the other things that clearly contribute to being a good doctor, like the ability to communicate, not just efficiently, but with more of the patient in mind, if that makes sense. And with the colleague stuff, it's those interpersonal relationship things that I maybe have not regarded as so important. I guess I'm beginning to see where I've potentially ignored some important aspects of what I do.
And I don't think anyone's failing you here, your colleagues. I mean, some of the comments, many of the comments are quite positive. They're just highlighting areas. And I think that's quite, I was going to say brave, but that's not the word I'm looking for. I think it's quite a sign of they want you, they want to support you by providing those comments. Even, looking at some of those comments, this is a brilliant general practitioner who has excelled in multiple aspects of including her clinical knowledge. You're well organised. So they're describing behaviours, and I know you said you skimmed the report, but I would really look at that and take heart. I know the scores don't quite reflect what you wanted to see, but the comments and some of the scores do reflect very positively. Yeah. So it hasn't been an easy sort of debrief for you. I can see that. And I could probably see that you really didn't want to do this. No, but having now gone through this time and we've had a bit of a look at the report, what might you take away from this that you might focus on, maybe one or two things?
Well, I think I definitely need to look at communication skills. I think that's something that I need to get better at, and maybe what you mentioned earlier about sketching, things like that. Like, what are the other ways that I can give patients the information that they need that isn't just purely verbal? And maybe it's about looking at how to simplify the explanations and things as well, which I guess, if I'm thinking forward, maybe the local health district.
Well, I'm wondering, that was my next question. How might you, have you come across anything that talks about how to improve your interpersonal competencies in practice? I know the College of GPs, I know Primary Health Networks, I know, because you're in that space, they probably run seminars on this. Have you heard of those? Or?
Yeah, and I'm aware that they're out there. I'm not entirely sure who it is who's running them, but I can find that out easily enough.
Yeah, it might be worth having a look at that and seeing if there's something there that grabs you. Was there anything else that you'd like to focus on as a result of this report?
No, I think that's the main thing for me is to really look at that and find out what it is that needs to change and how I can, exactly, and how I can change it. I think that's the main one for me.
I think one step at a time. I'd encourage you to have a good look at the report again in the light of this discussion. I've probably spoken a bit too much. It was nice to hear you share your views. And as I said, apologies that it was a bit confronting.
No, look, Michael, I will go back and have a look now. So I really want to say thank you. I really appreciate that you pointed those positive things out, because I didn't see them. I saw the negative and closed the report. You know,
very natural reaction.
I really appreciate that. I appreciate that you pointed those things out, but I also appreciate that you didn't. You didn't judge me around the stuff where, you know, those comments weren't so great or those scores weren't so great. I haven't felt judged, and that I was expecting to feel that, and I haven't. So thank you.
No, that's a pleasure, and I think the colleagues that were making those comments are doing it with your best interest at heart, and they're on your side by the sounds of it.
I hope so.
Yes, I'm sure. So wish you all the best going forward, and it sounds like you've got some actions to go forward with.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, thanks, Rowena.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Michael.
Cheers.